Today, I'm going to show you how you can partner with AI by giving you 3 real-world examples of how AI could make your work life easier and more efficient. That is, if the AI bubble doesn't burst first. Think of AI as the most brilliant intern you've ever had, who's just waiting for you to give him something to do, to tell him what you need. It's a great tool to help you with your daily tasks. But if AI tech doesn't start living up to its promises, the economic impact of its fall could be worse than the dot-com bust. Hey everybody, welcome to the podcast. Listen, if you're a Gen X white-collar employee who feels like their career path is heading in directions they didn't anticipate, well, you've come to the right place. Welcome home. You know, most people use AI right now as like a search engine on steroids. That's the majority of the way people use it. And it's very helpful that way, right? Instead of you having to search through each of the links that's provided in the search engine, it does that work for you. It goes through, it looks at all the data in those links, and then it compiles it into a summary for you to make a decision. So it is very helpful. But that is just scratching the surface. AI can do so much more. So today we're going to do some real-world examples of how you could use AI to improve not only your personal life, but your professional life. But before we start, one of the important things to remember is that right now, during the development of AI, because it's not like on solid ground yet, it's still in development, it's still growing, is that you can't really know where that data is going or how it's being used. And what I mean by that is that right now, for example, there's some lawsuits, I think one by the New York Times, against OpenAI, which does ChatGPT, because they feel that there's some copyright infringement. And there's a lot of these lawsuits out there. So that means that any data that we're putting into ChatGPT is being kept. And this is by court order. Now, OpenAI is fighting that court order, so we'll see what happens. And I'm not sure if this is true with all the other AI solutions that are out there, but I think at this point, it's safe to say, since we don't know, it's better to be safe than sorry. Simply because we're just not sure where that data is housed and how it's going to be protected. And we do know with OpenAI at this point that it will be auditable. You know, and that actually reminds me of a story. I was talking to a teen neighbor years ago, and there was a new app that came out that promised to delete anything that you put on its app. So it would just be out there for a very short period of time. And that was its selling point. And so a lot of teen boys and girls who were flirting with each other were using this app to send information back and forth, whether it be text or other things, maybe more salacious. And I just warned him. I said, listen, I know that the application is saying that it's deleting your information, but I would bet that it's not, because I've worked in IT for a long time. In order for an app this big to work, it has to run in a data center. So it has the computational power and the storage ability to actually manage all of these users using its application. So knowing data centers as I do, they keep all that information. Storage is cheap in the world of computing. Now, it doesn't mean that the app won't allow access to that data, but not allowing access is not the same as actually deleting the data off of their servers. Now, I don't know if they were deleting it or not. I was just telling him that, again, like with AI, it's better safe than sorry. You don't know, because what happens with data and data centers for an application that's making its money by being available to people, you are going to then have your data center data and drives and everything, and then you're going to have a backup. You're going to have a disaster recovery location where that data is transferred from there to here, and that's going to be transferred all the time throughout the day. And so let's say you send something that was private to someone on this app, and let's say they didn't delete it. I don't know, but let's say they didn't, but it wasn't available, but it was still in their storage. And then that got copied to a data center, and then that got copied to an archive. Let's say eventually it gets archived. And so that means it would take some work to get it out of the archive to make it readily available, but it doesn't mean that it's gone. It doesn't mean that it's gone forever. So I warned him to be cautious about the type of information that he would send on an application that promises to delete things. Again, it's a growing tech, AI, so they're still figuring it out. all the environments and how it works and how it's run and best practices, those are still being defined. So because of that, don't put your personal information or any of your health information or financial information into these tools right now. So for your protection and your safety, please don't do that. But that doesn't mean we can't use AI to be very productive and very helpful, because most of the time, our usage of AI is not tied to our personal information, our health information, or our financial information, right? It's just data from business activity or stories or emails or whatever, right? So today, I want to show you some just practical examples of how you could use AI in your personal life or professional life to speed up things, because that's where AI really has its gains right now, is through efficiency and through streamlining processes. So let's try one. So the first thing I want to do, and I just want to let you know, I have not set up or prepared any of these steps we're going to take. I want to make this as random as possible. I just want to go in, and I don't even want to review necessarily what I'm looking at. If there's a headline or an email subject that I find interesting, I'll probably use it. But I have not looked at any of this information because I want the discovery to be with both of us, right? We're just going to pick something, we'll have AI do it, and then we'll look at the output together. Let's say you at work or for your personal life, you read an article that you really found fascinating and interesting. Or let's say it was an article that was, I don't know, really complex. It could be financial, could be medical, things like that. And so you really just kind of want to get the bullet points out of it. You just kind of want to understand it at a basic level. So let's say you need to send an email about a subject that you have a whole bunch of information from, right? It could be, I don't know, an article or web page, could be some PowerPoint presentations, could be whatever. But you have all this information about this subject, and you really want to turn it into an email that you need to send out to coworkers, or if it's personal, to friends and family and whatnot. So let's find an article. Let's use an article. Let's find an article that will do this. We'll find a good one, and then we'll ask it to create an email of some sort. Okay, so let's do that. All right, let's look for a financial article about OpenAI, since we were just talking about OpenAI. So let's search. Let's see, what's a good financial that doesn't have a paywall. CNBC. Let's look at CNBC OpenAI. Let's see what comes up. Let's scroll down here. Databricks commits $100 million to OpenAI. I don't even know what Databricks is, but that sounds like something we need to send to people in an email. All right, so here's the link. Databricks commits $100 million to OpenAI. All right, let's go up here and save the URL. All right, and then in ChatGPT, can you please review the information on this page? And just paste in the link there. Okay, what kind of email do I want? All right, then create an inspiring email to Gen X white-collar employees about the positive future AI can bring to their lives. Why not? Let's see what it does. Okay. It's thinking, searching the page. Wow, here you go. That was quick. Let's see there. Hello, name. If you're anything like me, you've watched the AI headlines, seen the excitement and the anxiety, and wondered, where does this leave me? This is a really accurate email that challenges we share, right? I want to share a perspective I believe in. AI doesn't have to be a threat. It can be a companion, a turbocharger, a tool that lets you do more with less friction and with more focus on what truly matters. That is the promise of AI. That is the promise of AI. It's kind of like, remember when getting your cell phone, it was just going to make everything supposed to be faster and easier, right? And then you were suddenly available 24/7. So there's always downsides to technology. But let's see, what else does it say? What's shifting beneath us? All right, that's a sub-headline, okay? Big firms like Databricks are investing hundreds of millions of dollars to weave AI into everyday systems. This is not sci-fi. This is real engineering. It's real engineering. paraphrasing an email that AI wrote. What used to require whole teams of engineers and data scientists is now becoming accessible to folks who understand the business, not just the code. This is a good example of the pros and cons of AI, right? So it allows non-technical people to have access to technical information, but what happens to the engineers and data scientists who used to provide this data? Oh, man, technology change, it's hard. Okay, the intelligence is being brought to you where the work is, your spreadsheets, your dashboards, your customer reviews. Okay, so why this matters to us, especially in mid-career? That's interesting, because I said for Gen X, it actually categorized this email with that little sub information, right? This, especially in mid-career, which is where Gen Xers usually are. So it lists some challenges and then it lists some opportunities. So challenges today, opportunity tomorrow. Let's see what it says. Being overloaded with administrative tasks, data cleanup, and reports that feel endless. Yeah, that's happened, I think. What's its opportunity for tomorrow? AI assistants can automate repetitive work, freeing you to think, create, and interpret. I like that, as long as I'm getting a paycheck to do that, right? Okay, I'm just kidding. Let's keep going. Feeling pressure to constantly learn new tools. Yeah, that's true. Technology is always changing. Gen X has been doing that since dial-up, right? We're good at that. The new AI tools are increasingly plug and play, designed for domain experts, not just coders. Okay, domain experts not being like a web domain, but an area of expertise. Okay, worrying that younger generations will outpace you. That's always a challenge, especially with ageism kind of in the open now with jobs and job hunts and things like that. Your domain experience, judgment, relationships, those still matter more than ever when paired with AI. That's my argument about why we're so valuable. Are you listening, AI? Are you listening? Because yes, our experience, that real world experience, it's stuff you just can't program or pull out of a database somewhere. Real world experience is the nuance of the human experience in business. Yeah, this is where we kick some butt here. One of the challenges, doubting your value in the future of automation. Yes. AI amplifies human abilities. It doesn't replace the wisdom, empathy, and craft you bring. How I'd feel odd agreeing with AI sometimes. I really do. It's kind of like, well, are you the threat or the help, or are you just a tech that can be used for both? And I think in the end, it's really just a tech that can be used for both, right? All technology, as we've talked about on a previous podcast, the flying car theory, all technology can be used both for good and for evil. So then it goes through the value of having an AI co-pilot. I won't read everything, but it's be curious, not afraid, lean into domain knowledge, your area of expertise, build a feedback loop. So, use AI, evaluate its output rigorously. It's saying that, even AI is saying that, because again, we know that it's not 100%. It's probably not even close to 100%. So we're going to use the 80-20 rule and teach it what to value. Over time, it becomes more accurate and aligned. What's interesting to me is how these systems will be deployed in business, because I think if you could have, there's benefit to having access to the entire AI large language model. And then I think for some businesses, there's also a lot of value in just having access to a very limited amount of data. So then what the output should be. Like if you're a law firm or something, right? Or you're in medicine, or you're in manufacturing and you're a supply chain expert, and you really just build a small subset of AI just to manage the supply chain. Well, that knowledge that you would have in-house, you could really identify quickly what AI is doing well and what it isn't. So it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see how the solutions AI provide are made available, what the marketplace will want. That's going to be interesting to see. Oh, its last point, stay human. Well, thanks, AI. And what AI can't do well yet, deep strategy, nuance, ethics, connection. That's where we will shine. And this is an email to employees, so that's where we have our value. So, and then it goes to what will happen over the next decade. We know better than anyone that experience counts. And then it ends with, if you'd like, I'd love to walk through one or two AI tools that already work well in our field. No coding required. And we don't have to wait for the future. We can begin shaping it. That's a good promo sentence. Well done, AI. I like this. So this is a great example. This is an article that was just online. We picked randomly, and then we were able to present it as a positive email to a target audience within our business. So I will say this. I've done a lot of change management stuff, especially in IT, a lot of communications around it. And change management, no one likes change at all. It's just human nature. So when we have to enact change, one of the best things that you can do is to communicate to the people who are affected by the change the positive values of that change. The goal would be, and you never want to lie. You never want to lie to your employees. So you want to be honest. But the goal, the reason you're making a change is for a company to get better and hopefully for the employee's life to get better as an employee. So the goal is always with communicating change management is that you drip feed all the positives over a period of time, right? Like, hey, here's an example of what you do now, and here's an example of what it'll be like once this tool is rolled out. And you can see the benefits here. And then you just kind of you don't want to inundate them. Fire hose never works for that sort of change management adoption. So then you just kind of give them a little more information. And my goal was that by the time this tool rolls out, I want everyone to be so excited about the tool that they can't wait for the change, that staying on the old solution is actually a detriment to their happiness at work because not because you're lying, but because you're actually presenting a solution that is going to make their life better. There's also change that is required or regulated. And that message, you're not really pitching, hey, isn't this great that we have to add, a whole bunch of work to your work? That's never a good thing. But what you can, communicate is that, hey, listen, I know this is not going to be great, but if we want to stay in business, we have to do this. Now, you don't want to threaten anyone's job with any of these things. But the point is that sometimes, depending on the marketplace you're in, there are regulatory requirements for you to stay in business. And these continue to change and evolve, depending on politics, depending on technology, depending on the area that you're focused in. So some of the changes are required that no one wants to make, but have to be made. And so you have to communicate it like, listen, we all agree from president of the company on down that this is going to be a painful thing that we'd rather not do. But here's the thing we do want to do. We'd like to stay in business and provide the best service to our customers. And part of that is through meeting this regulatory compliance or whatever the new requirement is. It's always important when enacting change to make it as positive as possible. And again, you don't want to lie. No one wants change. And I'm not saying I've always reached this, and not me individually, but me and the teams that I've worked with over the years. But if it is the right solution at the right time for the company, then the positives should far outweigh the negatives. And hopefully that's not costing people their jobs. And that's the real challenge with AI right now, is no one's sure. One of the promises of AI is that it reduces headcount. But we're finding out that it's taking longer to see the fruits of the AI promise, which is normal with new technology. But people bought into it so early and they invested all this money, and now they need to see some sort of feedback and positive feedback financially. And you're also finding that, there's plenty of stories where companies, got rid of a section of the staff because they thought AI was going to solve that problem. And then they had to hire them all back because AI wasn't yet solving that problem. I mean, we've seen this before with big data and all the different interfaces and tech that we've lived through as Gen X. We've seen this before. Salespeople are really good at telling you how awesome it's going to be, and then you have to implement it. And working in IT, we're always like, listen, that you're not going to get everything that salesperson said. So anyway, I thought that was really interesting, right? I mean, it actually just took that page and converted it into a positive email for Gen Xers. And it had some really good points that I agree with. So that's cool. I like it. But as we've talked about before, in previous podcasts, we talked about AI hallucinating. In other words, it's not accurate. It's not telling you the right information. We've actually talked about that stems from OpenAI's original need to get feedback from AI as it was training it. And so it rewarded it for any feedback, even if it was inaccurate. And then the way you get out of that, so it doesn't lie to you, is that you have to tell it, if you don't know, hey, tell me you don't know. You actually have to tell AI that. So depending on what you're doing, you may want to end your prompt with, hey, and listen, if you don't know, just tell me you don't know. It's okay. But there's something even more fascinating about this challenge of getting accurate information out of AI. And this just reminds, every time I go through this, I think of it's like raising a kid. If you raise a kid, the growth of AI is like raising a kid. So there's not only AI hallucinating, there's also AI scheming. Scheming. Yeah. That's a little different level, right, of inaccuracy. Here, I got an article and I printed it out because that's what I do. There it is. Okay. OpenAI's research on AI models deliberately lying is wild. This is by an author is Julie Bort. Okay. So what it says here is that OpenAI released some research that explained how it's stopping AI models from scheming. And I know a lot of people are probably asking themselves, well, it's scheming? I didn't know it was scheming. What is scheming in the AI world? In practice, it says AI behaves one way on the surface while hiding its goals. That sounds so human, right? Uncomfortably so, a little bit. It says most of AI scheming wasn't harmful. Well, isn't that nice? The most common failures involve simple forms of deception, such as, or for instance, pretending to have completed a task without actually having done so. This stuff cracks me up. This learning phase of AI as a tool, that's just not a good employee or a bad child, right? No, did you make your bed? Yeah, I did. Can I go out and play now? And then your check's like, yeah, that guy didn't make his bed, right? All right. So AI developers haven't figured out a way to train their models not to scheme, because in order to do so, they have to train it how to scheme. Yeah, that's kind of a problem since it doesn't have any concept, perhaps, of what we would call scheming. It's kind of like telling your kids, listen, don't lie. And the way I'm going to tell you how not to lie is I'm going to show you how to be an exceptional liar and how to deceive everybody so well they don't even know. And then don't do it. You hear me? That's their challenge, and that's a real challenge. It says if a model understands, the AI model, large language model, if it understands that it's being tested, it can pretend it's not scheming just to pass the test, even though it's still scheming. Is this like a 12-year-old? Some teenager in rebellion stage? Is that where we are with AI? It's just a pimply-faced teenager in rebellion stage? Got to be kidding me. It's not news that AI models will lie. No, hallucinations, as they call it, or it's really, remember, it's that alignment piece. It's basically, they call it alignment, like AI isn't aligned with what we want it to do. Remember when we looked at like whether AI was like Star Trek or Skynet, and they said, yeah, in the Skynet version of AI, it's just that AI was misaligned with the survival of the human race. Yeah, that's all. Okay, so it says, by now, most of us have experienced AI hallucinations. This is the article. Or a model confidently giving an answer to a prompt that simply isn't true, a lie or a hallucination. But hallucinations are basically presenting guesswork with confidence. I love that. Guesswork with confidence. Well written there, Julie. But scheming is something else. Scheming is deliberate. But they say, they being the people that know more than me and you and everybody else with AI, say that the news here is actually good news. However, oh, that's nice. Let's hear about it. The researchers saw significant reductions in scheming by using deliberative alignment. There goes back to that word alignment. That technique involves teaching the model an anti-scheming specification and then making the model go review it before acting. It's a bit like making kids repeat the rules before they're allowed to play. You can play with your sister, but you can't hit your sister. Do you understand me? I can play with my sister as long as I don't hit her. That's where we are with AI. That's crazy. Okay. OpenAI researchers say that they haven't seen any kind of consequential scheming in the production traffic, the production environment, the ones that we're all using. I don't know what consequential scheming is. So there is some inconsequential scheming going on, right? I just don't know. It must not be impactful, I guess. The fact that AI models from multiple players intentionally deceive humans is perhaps understandable. They were built by humans to mimic humans and, synthetic data aside, for the most part, trained on data produced by humans. That's really true. And that's one of the challenges with AI is that AI is biased because it's trained by biased people. And that can be intentional bias or unintentional bias, right? So you also have to know that AI is not an oracle of unbiased truth. It's a program that uses algorithms to spit out information. And those algorithms may be skewed one way or the other, depending on the developer, the humans involved. Here's an example I've always thought may happen in the future. I thought that at some point, like in the medical field, for example, at some point you may go to a doctor and they may have a medical AI that's sponsored by, I don't know, Pfizer or something, or Johnson & Johnson. And so that way the medical staff doesn't have to pay for it. It's to give it to them free. And so it won't, let's say it's Johnson & Johnson for whatever reason. So let's say you have to, prescribe medication. Well, it will list all of them. It will list all of them, both Johnson & Johnson and not Johnson & Johnson. But it may skew to Johnson & Johnson, right? That's where that sort of bias may come in. It's like, hey, you can give them anything. But we recommend, it's funny, our top 3 are all Johnson & Johnson products. It's crazy. It's just accidents. No, it's algorithms and it's bias. So I wouldn't be surprised if that happens in the future or something like that. I mean, we kind of like already have that with the drug salesman showing up to doctors' offices and say, hey, we'll give you free samples and we'll give you all this stuff. And all we ask is that, when patients need something that we can solve, that maybe you let them try our stuff first. So that being an AI would not surprise me at all. All right, let's finish this up. We've all experienced the frustration of poorly performing technology. Gen Xers, are you kidding me? We've lived through every iteration of new technology, and some of it sucked. But when was the last time your not AI software deliberately lied to you? Yeah, my printer hasn't lied to me in a long time. I mean, we had a chat. Has your inbox ever fabricated emails on its own? No. Has your CMS logged new prospects that didn't exist to pad its numbers? No. Has your financial tech app made its own banking transactions? I would hope not. Well, it's worth pondering. Yeah, it is, Julie. As AIs are assigned more complex tasks with real-world consequences and begin pursuing more ambiguous long-term goals, we expect that the potential for harmful scheming will grow. So our safeguards and our ability to rigorously test must grow correspondingly. Yes, right? That's why humans are always going to be required in this AI stuff. That's just is. I mean, at some point, if it gets to AGI, artificial general intelligence, or ASI, artificial superior intelligence, we're still going to have to validate its stuff. It just may take us longer. For example, let's say it comes up with some new, compound by mixing A, B, and C together in ways we never thought about in a vacuum in space, and then it comes out and it's some new thing that's lightweight and super strong. Okay. Well, we're not going to just, build the next space shuttle with it or something. We're going to go test it, right? Because we are going to have to test all of this stuff. So this is the challenge of the tool. Again, I don't bring up any of this stuff to be negative about AI. As I read these things, I just want to share them with you because I just want to be honest with where AI is in its development. These are basically bugs, right? These are just application bugs. It's like a database not outputting correctly, a table being corrupted, or a GUI interface not working, the button doesn't click next or something like that. These are just bugs, except the AI system is so massive, the large language model is so big, and what it can do can be so impactful. These bugs can have consequence. I'm sure they'll work them out. Honestly, I'm sure they will. But I just want you to know where they are now. So as you're using this, you still need to train on it. It's like working with a buggy app, right? It's just part of the process of any new technology. So again, I am not bashing AI. It is part of our technical future. It is what we need to know and learn. And that's why I'm so adamant about sharing this information with you. Because once they figure it out, the businesses and the people that know it and know how to take advantage of it are going to be the people that have the most value. And I want that, and I think it should be us, Gen Xers, right? Okay, let's go on to the next task to do that we can show how AI could be like an assistant for you. All right, so here we go. I'm going to log into, I have an old Hotmail account I've had since 97. I know that doesn't sound like a positive in today's world. I actually got this Hotmail account before it was acquired by Microsoft. It was back when Hotmail was its own thing. It's crazy. Anyway, I use it for the stuff like that I'm going to get a lot of spam for. It's, that's generally what it's for. But it doesn't mean that I don't get good information out of that account. So let's go into the junk mail and see if we can find, I'm going to randomly find some emails from some source that I trust. I'm not even going to look at them. I'm just gonna take all the data out of them and paste it into, one of the AI solutions. And I'm going to say, hey, why don't you, turn this into a PowerPoint, bullet points for a PowerPoint presentation or things like that. Let's see what we want to do here. Okay, so let's go into my old, rarely used Hotmail account. And okay, Cody Sanchez. Now I've talked about her before on the previous podcast about entrepreneurship. She's really great. Awesome at explaining how business works, especially one of the ways that I recommend and I think is available to us is that there's a lot of retirees that are boomers are retiring, and they've created successful small businesses that they want to sell. And so she's all about Main Street instead of Wall Street. She's all about the need for small businesses to exist. And so she shares a lot of information about how to search for businesses, try, find the right ones that are best aligned to you, how to get financing either through official programs or seller financing, things like that. So I love her information. I actually get this information in another email, which is where I read it, but in here it just goes to my junk. So let's go ahead and let's just I'm going to pick 3 of these, and I'm just going to copy and paste its information into a single document, and then paste all that into, let's do ChatGPT again. All right, so below are emails that I'd like you to summarize the contents into bullet points. Yeah, okay, so let's find that has a whole bunch of tips. Okay, good. That's a good one to do. Let's copy that. Let's paste it. Okay, that's number 1. Let's get another one here. Open up the next one below it. This looks just like, this isn't so much tips and tricks, but this is another newsletter she sends out. Okay, good. We'll paste that in there. And then let's do one more. This one, again, just more tips. This is what her emails, her newsletters are. So that's good. Let's just take that, capture it, paste it into ChatGPT. And let's hit enter. Let's see what it does for bullet points here. 9. So the email 1, it's bullet pointing. Let's scroll down here. Email 2, it has bullet pointed, and it's do you want me to condense these? Yes, that's the point. It's actually good that it asked, really. Didn't make assumptions. That's good. So here it is. It's taken those 3 emails and it's put it into simple bullet points that you could put anywhere. Again, I didn't read those emails. You didn't either. It was too fast. So here we are. The core truths about business and wealth. Ownership is the key to freedom and wealth. Financing matters early. Leverage AI. Well, okay, good. Engineer reviews. Know your customer's avatar. In other words, who they are as a personality or persona. Community is advantage. Speed beats strategy. Strong partnerships pay off. Define the enemy. And the bigger picture, building versus destroying. Destruction is easy. Building is hard. Small businesses unify society. Entrepreneurship is nation building. History honors builders, not arsonists. Remember, I talked in previous podcasts, be the firefighter, not the arsonist. All right. See, Cody and I are just like this. Just kidding. Okay. Key invitation. Then it's like, hey, they have an event that will help you. So that's awesome, right? So if you had all this information, let's say you had a whole bunch of an email chain, right? That was super long where people had a conversation about a subject at work and you had to present on that. Well, all you have to do is copy that super long email chain, put it into AI and say, hey, can you just make bullet points out of this? And then you get to decide, right? I would copy and paste this into whatever I needed. Awesome. But I would validate, obviously, what's in that presentation. That's where that 20% of human validation verification comes from. Okay, so that's an example. Simple example, easy to apply in your personal life or business life, right? Really easy. Before we get on to the last one, I just want to cover one more thing real quick. I said in the opening that the AI bubble or the bursting of the AI bubble could be worse than the dot-com bust. Now, we've lived through the dot-com bust. One of the companies I was working for at the time of the dot-com bust, the impact of that changed the way they did business going forward because they were heavily involved in a couple of major partners, customers, and those were all in the dot-com, the web space. And so when it took a dump, their market share of their customers was almost all dot-com stuff. And so when the dot-com busted, they also were hit heavily. So after that, they started to diversify into different areas like medical and automotive and things like that weren't specific to the dot-com. It was hard not to ride that wave at the time, if you remember. It's so funny. The business just doesn't change. Like the rules of business just don't change. So I remember when the web first came out, there was GeoCities. Do you remember GeoCities? And it was just a community. It was online. You can make your own blog and stuff like that. And I remember seeing whoever created that on one of the financial programs on TV. And they say, well, how do you make money? And they're like, well, it's a community. We have everyone there. And they're like, yeah, but how do you make money? And they're like, well, it's a community. Yeah, but how do you make money? Because the rules of money don't change, right? You have a product someone needs. You sell it at a price that everyone agrees is worth the value of whatever your solution is, and then it's an open exchange of product for money. I mean, that's capitalism. So that's kind of where we are with the AI bubble. It is so similar to the dot-com bubble in this respect. What you'll remember is that it was like had all this promise. Like and when I remember when the internet started, my mind like exploded because the possibilities of being able to connect and sell to anyone in the world almost instantaneously was like, what? Like just impossible. And I see that AI reaction very similar, right? Everyone thinks it can do everything for everyone at all times. And its possibility is mind-blowing. But it still needs to follow the rules and the laws of business, which is your product has to deliver on its promise or else people will stop buying it. And if you're an early adopter, then you may be stuck with a cool new solution that maybe isn't going to be the effective long-term solution because it's got iterations to go before that happens. So the AI bubble is that possibility of, hey, we thought tech was going to meet its promise. This AI tech was going to meet its promise sooner than it actually is, because as we get into these large language models and real world examples, we're finding hallucinations and scheming, and we're trying to figure out how to manage that. Again, bugs in the system, it's fine, it's common. But so many people have invested in it, and it can be such a large economic shift of how people do business, like the internet when it came out, that the consequence of the bubble bursting is as big or bigger than the dot-com bust. And I have a couple articles here I'll go through real quick. And I don't want to disappoint you, so I printed them out. I'm a giver that way. Okay, so the first, such an idiot. Okay, so the first one is OpenAI board chair doubles down on CEO Sam Altman's belief that we're in an AI bubble. The quote is, a lot of people will lose a lot of money. Oh, that's like a warm hug. So the OpenAI chairman, Brett Taylor, shares the opinion of Sam Altman that we're in an AI bubble, but that it's not entirely a bad thing. Well, I don't know. That quote didn't sound positive. Here's the quote from Mr. Taylor. It is both true that AI will transform the economy, and I think it will, like the internet, create huge amounts of economic value in the future. Mr. Taylor said, I think it's a man. I think we're also in a bubble, and a lot of people lose a lot of money. And I think both are absolutely true at the same time, and that there's a lot of historical precedents for both of those things being true at the same time. Again, the dot-com bubble, right? Someone is going to lose a phenomenal amount of money, and that's usually the early adopters. This is what Altman said. And a lot of people are going to make a phenomenal amount of money. I may have to go into this deeper in a future podcast, but I read an amazing book. It's actually a marketing book, but it uncovered some cultural repetition, and it's called The Pendulum. And it's basically talks about how as a generation, every 40 years, we swing between a me generation and a we generation. When the pendulum's near the bottom is where the most opportunity is. So throughout human history, at least in modern human history, when there's this window, this like 20-year window, 10-year window at the bottom on either side of the base of the pendulum swing, where there's real opportunity. And the last is where radio happened and TV happened, and now it's where the internet happened. And so you see early tools like Yahoo, Netscape. You had a lot of different browsers. You had a lot of different search engines. You had MySpace before Facebook. You had AOL before Google. So you have these tools that are early adopters, and they see what's coming, and they're the first in the space. But it doesn't mean that they're going to be the most successful. It's usually once these kinks have worked out, and the culture has become more open to those new technologies, is when the adoption curve happens. So the early adopters of AI are kind of in this situation where they may be using a AOL or a Yahoo or a GeoCities or something like that, when in the future it's going to be Facebook, it's going to be Google, it's going to be Amazon, it's going to be YouTube, right? There were other variations of those before they took over the market share. And that's because the culture wasn't ready for this new way of doing things. And when it was, the people who had worked through the bugs of this new technology, made it more user-friendly, they took off. And so they're right. Once this gets figured out, there's some people going to make a lot of money. And from people I've talked to in Silicon Valley that I know, since data centers and energy are the thing, they really feel that whoever has the data centers is going to win. And a lot of those are Google and Amazon right now, because they already have data centers to do what they do. And they don't have to build them from scratch. So they just need to expand. So I don't know if that'll be true. It'll be interesting to see, but it would not surprise me because other people are going to have to build a whole bunch of data center power just to catch up to Google and Amazon before they can start beating them. So we'll see what happens. Anyway, let's get back to this story here. Torsten Slok, I don't know how to pronounce, warned in July that the top 10 companies in the S&P 500 are more overvalued today than they were during the dot-com boom and bust 25 years ago. And that's why this could be worse. That's why this could be worse than the dot-com bust, is because the stock market and the economy was starting to slide in a negative direction. It goes through cycles, so fine. It's going to go down, then it comes back up. But it was starting to slide when AI came out. And suddenly it paused that, and then it elevated it. So, and I'm not a financial guy, but I'm just saying from an observer's perspective, all the economy's eggs are in these few companies' baskets, because that's where all the leverage in the economy is right now, which is these AI tools and these people playing in the AI space. So Taylor indicated that there will be winners in the AI boom, but it's difficult to say what these wins will look like. So that's one article. And then I have another article about this as well, which is just how bad would an AI bubble be? The entire U.S. economy is propped up by the promise of productivity gains that are very far from materializing. Again, challenge of new tech. This is written by Roger Karma. That's an interesting name. I don't know how to say that. Roger has a little like apostrophe over the E. So I don't know how to say that name. So if I got it wrong, I apologize. But it says in this article, if there is any field in which the rise of AI is already said to be rendering humans obsolete, and in which the dawn of superintelligence is already upon us, it is coding. This makes the result of a recent study genuinely astonishing. In a study published in July, think tank Model Evaluation and Threat Research randomly assigned a group of experienced software developers to perform code tasks with or without AI tools. This is similar to an article we read about competency penalty in a previous episode. It's interesting. It was the most rigorous test to date of how AI would perform in the real world. Because coding is one of the skills that existing models have largely mastered, just about everyone involved expected AI to generate huge productivity gains. In a pre-experiment survey of experts, the mean prediction was that AI would speed developers' work by nearly 40%. Afterward, the study's participants estimated that AI made only a 20% gain. However, when the research team looked at the employees' actual work output, they found that developers had completed tasks 20% slower when using AI than when not using AI. And this really stunned the researchers. They said no one expected this outcome. They said the United States is undergoing an extraordinary AI-fueled economic boom, and undergirding all the investments is the belief that AI will make workers dramatically more productive, which will in turn boost corporate profits to unimaginable levels. On the other hand, evidence is piling up that AI is failing to deliver in the real world. Again, commonplace in tech, especially something this vast. Companies trying to incorporate AI have seen virtually no impact on their bottom line, and economists looking for evidence of AI-replaced job displacement have mostly come up empty. Interesting. I think it's just because AI hasn't worked as well as people thought. None of that means that AI can't eventually be every bit as transformative as its biggest boosters claim it can be, but eventually could turn out to be a long time. If that bubble bursts, if the AI bubble bursts, it could put the dot-com crash to shame. Yikes. And the tech giants and their Silicon Valley backers won't be the only ones who will suffer. Yeah, like the whole world's economy took a dump during the dot-com bust. If this can be worse. All right, moving on here. So how could AI have made the developers in an experiment less productive? That's a really good question. The answer has to do with the capability reliability gap. I love how they're coming up with these terms. There was a competency penalty, and now there's the capability reliability gap. And it says, although AI systems have learned to perform an impressive set of tasks, they struggle to complete those tasks with the consistency and accuracy demanded in the real-world settings. That's interesting. Even the most advanced systems make small mistakes or slightly misunderstand directions, requiring the human to carefully review their work and make the changes where needed. So it's one of those things where, is it faster for me to just do it myself? Or is it faster for me to let it do it and me fix it? That's a real world struggle, right? I remember there was an employee that I had that was, out there by himself, and he was like the single point of failure in this process. And so I was like, listen, I'll get another employee for you to learn, right? So they can, help you out, be a backup, give you some vacation time. And that person was like, I don't have time to train anybody. I understood that. But in the same respect, as a company, you don't want employees to be facing that. And also from a manager's perspective, I'm like, well, you can't have it both ways. You can't complain that you don't have any help and then refuse help because you don't have time. At some point, you have to have short-term pain, right, of training somebody to help you so that you can actually have the long-term gain of having redundancy and the ability to go on vacation and not be on call 24/7, 365. So there is this balance you have to weigh in business of change. No one likes it. It's going to occur some inefficiencies during the process of change. But at the end result, are they worth that? And what they're finding with these particular cases at this time in AI's life, that maybe not so much. Maybe the prompts aren't as great. Maybe they need to do better about what exactly they're asking AI to do and the output so that they can maybe review it faster. I don't know. I'm not a coder, but these are the common things that come up when you have a new tech is how do I use it better to make it work better, right? Every tech has its thing that it does and doesn't like to do, right? And so if your space in this app world is using it where it doesn't like to do things or doesn't do it well, you have to work around it. So we'll see what happens. The capability reliability gap might explain why generative AI has so far failed to deliver tangible results for businesses that use it. Perhaps AI advancement is experiencing only a temporary blip. I believe it is, but I think it may take longer because AI is huge. Like these large language models are huge. And so tweaking that is hard. I mean, think about the challenges that we have, right? No matter how well you're raised, we have some bad wiring in there somewhere, right? It could take a lifetime to figure out what is causing me to react this way in this situation. You realize, oh, it's something that happened that I'd forgotten about. Well, think about doing that with an AI large language model that's getting input from everybody in the world, asking it everything. Let's finish up. With AI, we're early in the negative part of the J curve. The J curve is when things are tough, but when it takes off, it goes up. It's not like a bell curve, it's a J. So it just, when it works, when it starts working, it's just going to rocket. So Anthropic CEO has predicted that by 2027, or not much longer than that, AI will be better than humans at almost everything. I doubt that. There's just so much more to the human experience than remembering crap and spewing it out, right? I'm sorry, AI, look at the sunset and tell me how beautiful it is and how it makes you feel and how it makes you remind you of that time you went to the lake with your grandfather. I mean, come on. It won't be superior to humans. It'll be better than humans at some things and maybe a lot of things, but it won't be better at being human than a human. In a March survey, the Associates for the Advancement of Artificial Intelligence asked 475 AI researchers whether current approaches to AI development could produce a system that matches or surpasses human intelligence. More than 3/4 said it was unlikely to very unlikely. Because our experience is our experience, like our human experience is just, it's human nature, right? We don't think about it. We just exist. To think that you could just replicate that easily, hubris. Now, here's the challenge economically. AI appears to be propping up something like the entire U.S. economy. More than half of the growth of the S&P 500 since 2023 has come from just 7 companies: Alphabet, Amazon, Apple, Meta, Microsoft, NVIDIA, and Tesla. Out of the S&P 500, there's 493 other businesses that are not really having as much of an impact to the entire economy than those 7, and that's kind of scary. During the internet revolution of the 90s, investors poured their money into basically every company with a .com in its name, based on the belief that the internet was about to revolutionize business. Yes, that is true. By 2000, however, it had become clear that the companies were burning through cash with little to show for it, and investors responded by dumping the most overpriced tech stocks. From March 2000 to October 2020, the S&P 500 fell by nearly 50%. AI-related investments have already surpassed the level that telecom hit at the peak of the dot-com boom as a share of the economy. Man, it's a great article. I have links for all this stuff in there. There's a lot of stuff I skipped over. But so those are the challenges with this AI bubble. It's new tech. It's got some bugs, we'll call it, and they're working it out. And I'm sure they will. It just may take longer than we expect. But if investors start getting squeamish or saying this ain't working, I'm going to go invest over here, well, that's a big deal. Okay, so let's get to the last example of how you can use AI in your life. And this is something I never thought about. I saw it online and I thought, oh, this is really interesting. And it is brainstorming with AI. Brainstorming. I mean, I've done it in a small way. I've done it in a small way where I've said, hey, I'm trying to do this. Can you give me 3 options, right? I've done that. So I'm going to use Google Gemini. I've been using that a little bit recently. I'll talk about this in a future podcast, actually working on an app, developing it through Google Gemini that will help us, Gen Xers. And it's really cool. We've done a lot of OpenAI, ChatGPT. We've done Grok before. We've done Perplexity. I've not done Gemini here. And who knows, when you see this, it could all be very different, as I said before. But let's ask Gemini here. I would like to brainstorm with you about Gen X and AI. Can you help me? See what it says. Yeah, cool. Actually gave me some options here. Gen X adoption and usage, the impact of AI on Gen X careers and workplace. Yeah. How Gen X as digital immigrants experience and transition from analog to digital. Boom. So true. Specific opportunities. Okay. Let's see. All of those are good. Let's do each individually with the first one. What do you think are the top 5 areas of focus Gen Xers should focus on? No, apply when adopting and using AI. Let's see, AI for productivity, workflow optimization, AI for continuous learning and skill transformation, AI for enhanced strategic decision-making, AI for leadership and communication, AI for financial planning. All right. I think the second one is probably in line with what we've been focusing on. So I love the second item. If you were going to make a PowerPoint slide on this topic, how would you approach this material? PowerPoint slide concept. Oh, cool. Okay. AI is the Gen Xer's competitive edge. This title is continuous learning, use of AI to stay fluent, not fluent in AI. That's interesting. Subtitle, leveraging AI as a personalized co-pilot for career strategy. So you have the section is the challenge, the title, the speed of obsolescence, and then the bullet points. Okay, that's cool. And then it's got some call to actions. Yes, every PowerPoint slide should have a call to action. Drives me nuts when they don't. Okay, well, let's see. That's good. Can we save that response and move on to the next topic? I'd like you to post all of our saved responses into a single post. Period. Does that make sense? I always ask if that makes sense because sometimes they have needs, like they need more clarity or whatever. Makes perfect sense. Okay, good. The impact of Gen Z on careers and work. Awesome. Interesting. AI for enhanced strategic decision-making, data analysis. All right. Haven't dove deep into that yet. I know about it, but let's find out what it says. Let's look at the AI for enhanced strategic decision-making. One of the challenges companies have, mentioned this in the previous podcast, is that they don't have their processes documented. So one of the challenges companies often have is a lack of documentation or a lack of updated documentation to their processes. How can AI help a company in that situation document their processes so they can use AI tools to look for efficiencies? Because that is the point of AI. Let's see what it comes up with. It's called process mining and process discovery. All right. Let's see. Reverse engineering the operating manual. Interesting. All right. So you want to capture the as-is state? Yes, you do. You do want a flow chart. Yes, a process map. Absolutely. I do those all the time, swim lanes and whatnot. This is the most powerful method. The algorithms event logs from core systems like CRM, ERP, ticketing, and database. It stitches together timestamp events. Invoice is created, ticket routed to Department B, and so forth to build a complete objective map of the process. That is really fascinating. I mean, you have to give it access to those very core business required. Number 2, task mining. This is just basically keystrokes. It just tracks everything everyone does on their computer. End users probably are not going to like that. But you could capture what they do and how they do it. And the last is generative AI from documents. Is it you just digitize all the material, put it in there, related to a specific process or group or whatever, have it go in there and spit out what it thinks is the process for that based on that information. But this is interesting. Bridging the gap. For Gen X leaders, this approach is crucial because it leverages our experience, it creates trust, and it ensures longevity. That's what we want. That's what Gen X, man, we have all the experience and knowledge where you've adapted to all the tech since the dial-up, man. Yes, I agree with all of that. All right, I work a lot in communication, so I want to see what AI for leadership communications would do. I spent a lot of time taking technical information and being able to present it to non-technical audiences. And let's see if this is going to take my job. How would you approach getting Gen X white-collar employees to understand and adapt when it comes to leadership and communication? Let's see what it says here. 3-part strategy. Practical applications. Oh, this is interesting. Didn't even occur to me. I'd love to see how it does this. It's basically saying, let's create a document, in this case, budget cuts for the message for different generations. That's really cool. All right, let's see what it does. And let's say the budget is going to be, I don't know, cut by 20%. Let's use that. Can you create 3 messages with distinct tones you suggested? Interesting. Okay, target audience is for Gen Xers, Boomers, Executive, Comprehensive. Let's look at the difference here really quick. The subject on the Gen X is critical fiscal update, Q4 budget adjustment, and strategic path forward, where the Gen Z millennials, they like concise, action-oriented. So the subject here is action required, 20% Q4 budget reduction. So the Gen Xers like formal and detailed, and the people younger than that like concise action. So interesting, the difference. That is really neat. That's very helpful. These are like some tangible examples of how you can use AI to be more efficient. Really cool. I can't wait to explore more and come up with some other ideas of how I could use AI to be more effective. So I hope you found this valuable. I did. So I hope you did. Hey, don't forget to go to the Skool community. The link's in the show notes. This is where I set up a community for Gen Xers. It's free. Just sign up. That's for us Gen Xers to get together, to kind of network, to be advocates for each other, to help each other out, use our collective knowledge to work together to solve the challenges facing Gen X in the white-collar workplace. I want that to be a home for us, and it's just an open dialogue for Gen Xers everywhere. I don't know. We're an awesome generation, man. We can come up with a solution. Let's just put our heads together digitally, virtually, and on the Skool community and see what we come up with. All right. Thank you so much for joining me today on the podcast. I hope you found this valuable. Comments, go to Skool, check it out. And thank you so much for spending your time with me today. Let's do what we do best as Gen Xers. Let's work together. Let's lead by example. There's a lot of work to be done. So let's get started. I'll see you next time.